Hi there, and welcome to the Live Vibrant podcast, where we explore how to live with energy, purpose, and intention. I'm your host, Joshua Haig, a holistic lifestyle, performance, and success coach with a background in professional sports and 2 decades of coaching experience. Each week, I sit down with experts across a multitude of fields, including wellness, finance, and personal growth, to uncover practical strategies that will help you thrive in every area of life. Let's dive in and help you live your most vibrant life. I'm so excited to sit down today with Rocky Snyder. He has been a mentor to me, an incredible friend. He is a strength and conditioning coach, a strength specialist. He's a performance consultant. This has all been for 30 plus years. Rocky, thanks for coming on the podcast with me.
Josh, man, I'm loving it. I can't wait to get underway here. And I always love having conversations with you. So bring it, baby.
Here we are. So tell us quick, for the people who don't know who you are, kind of, give us the background. What do you do? What do you coach? Obviously, there's so many cool facets to what you do. But for the unknowledgeable listener, talk to me about it.
All right. Well, I kind of jokingly say just I'm a glorified gym rat who teaches people to lift heavy things and count to 10. I've been doing that for 4 decades, but somewhere along the way that's changed. I mean, I'm kind of tired of by now, Josh, I should be able to count to 10 in every world language there is, but I'm a slacker. I mean, I've only got maybe three languages, perhaps 4 under my belt, but ultimately. I got kind of, a little bit, I won't say tired of it, but I got more excited about other things. But yeah, I'm in Santa Cruz, California. So
All right.
the town ordinance is that if you don't surf, you've got 30 days to get out of town. So I've been a surfer for over 30 years here since I moved here in the early 90s, and I love it here. I grew up in the Northeast, and I love being in the outdoors in the backcountry of New England. And the last thing I ever thought being a teenager would be to go to a gym. But one of my buddies took me there and I really enjoyed it and have been pursuing human movement ever since. And it wasn't what I went to school for originally. And nowadays I'm back in school. But other than that, I mean, the school has continued for the last 30 plus years. It's just not in the formal traditional setting. It's
Mm-hmm.
been outside with mentors and so on. So, I mean, in the early 90s, I discovered that the programs we were designing were actually they came at a high orthopedic cost, if we can use Mike Boyle's phrase there, and that these patterns that we were using to get stronger were not very practical. They weren't found on a day-to-day basis. They were very artificial
Yep.
and built upon like bodybuilding and other competitions. And they were creating a lot of itises, like tendonitis and bursitis and low back
Mm-hmm.
problems. And these weren't occurring before people were working out with me. They just started to develop, and I realized there's a trend and a pattern. So I started investigating that, and I realized that there was kind of a better way to go about exercising that would bring people back into a more balanced, aligned position and reduce asymmetries. And I've been pursuing that for all this time now. And and because of it, we get some amazing results in regards to not only chronic pain, but rehab and return to performance spectrum. So these days, I'm a performance consultant. While I still have my brick and mortar here in Santa Cruz, and I've got a studio with some great trainers, I get to travel and work with some elite level teams and athletes and try and teach medical and training staff a little bit more about this kind of different approach and breaking away from tradition.
And can you elaborate a little bit on what this different approach is, right? And I have a feeling that having, not nearly 3 decades, but trained long enough, most people gravitate towards that bodybuilding concept, right? And for those who are unaware, that's going to be your chest and back, biceps day, right? Leg day. And there's fun to it, benefits to it. But when you talk about training in a new sense or with a different pattern, and you're using all sorts of buzzwords, what does that mean to me? Can you elaborate for the listener?
So there's some approaches in our world, and most of them stem from the Eastern philosophies, but there's some that are more Western. And what I mean by that is like chiropractic medicine. A lot of people these days accept chiropractics and see a lot of benefit in it. And the fundamental foundation for chiropractic medicine is to bring the body back into a more balanced place where muscle tension is not pulling on the body harder in one area than the other, that the bones have been aligned so that there's proper spacing, and that allows for proper movement with the least amount of restriction, and the nervous system fires up into a way that is the most efficient. And even the organs, how they sit within the pelvic bowl and encased within the rib cage, and for that matter, the skull, when we're in a more balanced place, all the organic functions, the organs of the body, not just to mention muscles and bones and movement, but everything is at a more efficient, optimal place to exist. So I mean, yoga's been around for somewhere between 5 to 10,000 years. Tai Chi, certain martial arts, and then you've got the Western approach of osteopathy, right? The osteopaths trying to do similar things. Ultimately, massage therapy, even a lot of structural integration, Rolfing. Like the list continues to expand as time goes on, because ultimately we realize that if we can bring the body into a more balanced place, optimal performance can potentially be achieved more readily and to a higher level, I guess you'd say. So that's really it. So back to those bodybuilding programs. Yeah, if we look at the history of Western fitness, we'll see that somewhere in the 80s, when the let's get physical with Olivia Newton-John and Jane Fonda, and even before that, Jack LaLanne, like there came a surge. Jim Fick's Book of Running got everybody running in the 1970s, like 77, I think the book came out, and people got running shoes, and Nike was born, right? All this, if you look at the history of it, somewhere during the 80s, health clubs began to really explode on the scene, and they became more and more just popular, but also, hey, you want to go where the bells and whistles are. Everyone likes the flashy, shiny things, just like their fish looking at a lure. And so what that meant is that they had bigger and bigger facilities with a lot of open space, and they filled that open space with a lot of selectorized equipment, a lot of upholstery where you sat and you created force. Well, that is what was great in terms of bodybuilding and isolating and
Right.
developing hypertrophy of the muscle, like increasing muscle size, right? That's what hypertrophy is. And so we borrowed from three competitive sports, I guess you'd call, or competitions. Bodybuilding, which I already mentioned. So we started breaking the body apart rather than putting it together. We started developing force where we were really good and not where weren't really good. In fact, most people gravitated toward exercises that they liked and forgot about the things they weren't great at. So that in itself creates an imbalance. But then we started to say, okay, well, what else can we do? Well, there's those power lifters. So if we want to get strong, we could look at strongman competitions. And the three basic lifts were bench press, deadlift, and squat. So now that is almost like the fundamental component of every strength routine. But granted, very few people that do those programs actually compete in powerlifting. They're hoping that it transfers over
Right.
into whatever sport or activity they're doing. And so we're forgetting about that SAID principle, which SAID is an acronym and that stands for specific adaptation to impose demands. That means you're going to change based on the specific demand that you put your body into. And that means that if you want to be really good at heavy squats, then you should squat heavy. And the same thing
Right.
with deadlifting. And if you want to lay on your back and push your spouse off your body, then bench press is really specific to that. But for most people, it's not what we need. But we've tried to, through research, prove that this is the way to go. And then the third competition is Olympic style weightlifting. So we're basically taking those big East Germans and Bulgarians and trying to turn people into those by doing clean and jerks and snatches. And we convince ourselves that this type of explosiveness is really what we need. And more research is coming out, like Franz Bosch is a European physiologist who's amazing with his research. And he's coming back to prove that, well, it's not all that. There's a lot of drawbacks to these approaches, and one of them for me is the fact that it creates imbalances, asymmetries. It pulls people out of alignment, creates compensatory patterns, and that's on top of a body that is already compensating. We're living in a culture where people are sitting more than ever before. And if you just think about your life, Josh, or any of the people listening, just think about all the experiences you have had through your life and know that your unconscious mind has had to somehow address or create a strategy on how to be efficient through all the experiences of your life. And that doesn't mean just injuries, traumas, surgeries, accidents. It could mean anything from mental and emotional turmoil or success for that matter. It's like your body it encapsulates and is a reflection of every element that has led up to this point in your life. So everyone that walks into the gym is going to be uniquely different because no one
Mhm.
has lived the exact same life. And yet we're trying to do the same programs and expect the same results when that really isn't the case.
And on top of it, we're trying to do the exact same programs that professionals are doing, right? You're looking at Olympic weightlifters and power lifters. These are some the people who you're mirroring the programs off of are some of the best, have some of the best training underneath them or coaching, as well as then you look at the recovery protocol and the auxiliary systems at play. And then, Johnny and Joe walk into the gym at 35 years old with a bum knee and they're trying to do the exact same things without taking into account any of the other parts at play, so to speak. You're set up for failure to begin with. So how do we beat that? How do you, I always laugh and I inevitably, and you've probably seen it more times than you care to count, but the client who sits down and they're just like, I used to be able to do this. I should be able to do this. How do we start to take this new concept of thinking about, patterning them for this life, what they are today, the body that they have today? How do you start to transition them towards that? How do you coach towards that? How do you kind of guide your people away from the bodybuilding, powerlifting? How do you take them?
I find it more challenging for the younger clientele and
Hmm.
athletes to some
Why?
degree.
Why?
Because one, they haven't been around long enough to experience the long-term effects of high intensity training and the type of lifting programs that we're alluding to, like the previous program designs that incorporate all of those lifts. I'm not saying lifting is a bad thing. Consider Olympic gymnasts. They are amazingly fit and they do some incredible feats of athleticism and human performance, and very few of them find themselves in the weight room all that often.
Hmm.
So there's ways of getting stronger without doing a lot of heavy lifting, and we could date it back to the late 1800s where sanitariums and gymnasiums came up and there was a lot more gymnastics equipment in there and very little in the regards of barbells and dumbbells and bumper plates and things of that nature. But it's a little bit easier with the 40 and older over crowd because they are experiencing the results of the previous high intensity kind of routines that they had been taught, they had been encouraged, and they thought that that's exactly what they need. Plus, the earlier generation, I mean, if we could think from a cultural perspective, that's the mating season of life. That's where you're going to find people looking for partners or having families and expanding upon their families. And so with that, there's a little bit of plumage that needs to be primped and preened and exposed. And in our culture today in the Western world, there's a certain body style that the male figure
Right.
and compared to the female figure, there's certain attributes that a lot of people in this society are favoring or encouraged to favor. So now that we've gone past the mating season, past like 35 to maybe 40. And now people are thinking more about longevity. They want to feel vibrant. They want to feel vital. They want to be pain free as much as possible. And they want to continue to pursue the activities that they so
Hmm.
enjoy. And the last thing they need is to be hampered or hamstringed by injuries or issues in the tissues. They want to have the ability to do whatever it is they hope to do. And they have a little bit more financial liberty because they are
To be
not
able
the
to.
poor college students anymore. They've
Mhm.
developed a career path. And hopefully that has allowed them to have a little bit more freedom in choosing what they want to invest in. And a lot of people want to invest in themselves. So it's an easier buy-in for the older crowd. The younger crowd, I'll have them experience it in their bodies. I will acknowledge what they're feeling at during the session, but especially at the end of their session. In fact, most of the conditioning programs that I develop for people are not ones that get them completely fatigued, that get them wanting to bend over in the bushes outside, that get them wanting to go home and just lay on the couch and just collapse. Like, what kind of program is that? That is not what we're looking for. In fact, I want the conditioning programs, the strength training conditioning programs that we develop here, to be ones that stimulate the body in ways that upregulate uh, the tone in their autonomic nervous system, somewhere between sympathetic and parasympathetic, trying to find that middle ground where they're in the training zone, like they want to leave and go do something. Like, I am feeling amazing right now from what we just achieved. You have upregulated my system, so I want to go for a bike ride now. I feel like I want to go ballroom dancing with my wife. I want to go hike now. That tells me from a very anecdotal or subjective way that we hit it. That's where I want them to be. The last thing I
How do
want
you know
them to
where that
do is
line
just
is?
crawl out.
How do you know where that line is?
Um, through years of experience, I think, through watching bodies move. There was a time not too long ago during COVID where we were forced to do it all online.
Right.
We, at least here in my facility, we weren't able to do anything in person. Everyone was sheltered in place. So the work that I do requires really watching how the body moves and seeing the subtle changes that occur after each exercise, because there is a subtle change.
Mhm.
And the more you look for it, eventually you start seeing it. And with trying to keep my ego in check here, there was a threshold that I went through sometime during the early stages of COVID where I began to see things I couldn't see before, because I had to really, all I could do is just stand or sit there and watch bodies time and time again. And then even if it was two dimensional on a screen and I couldn't move around it, I was able to see things that I wasn't seeing before. And now, interestingly enough, I can't unsee it.
Hmm.
So simply watching somebody walk across a room, you see how they move in a different light. You see their body in almost a blurred vision move with more ease and comfort. And then you ask them about it, and not to try and encourage an answer, just simply ask, how does that feel? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, I feel
Right.
taller, or I feel lighter. There's something about a spring to my step. Is it weird that I feel younger right now? No, not at all. Right? And just after one little
Yeah.
tweak to their system. But it's the key is giving their bodies and their nervous system what is missing in their
Right.
patterns, in their system. And you're probably not going to hit the nail on the head by doing generic programs that you'll find in a textbook, a magazine, or a YouTube video.
And so, is there any way for the average person to figure some of this out for themselves, or is this really something that comes from a master coach such as yourself?
Well, I think it helps with some guidance to know the direction that you're going. But to answer your question, no, I think if you're given some basic tools, you can start the process. The things that we have out there that are offered right now are fantastic in terms of assessments and movement screening. They have opened the door to consideration and perspective. And now that the door's open, we can look around and find out, I wonder if there's some simple ways that we can just view how people move to give us more insight as to what they really need. And
Mm.
so, in fact, this summer, I'll be doing a lecture at the national conference for the National Strength Conditioning Association, all about creating your own movement screens for just the general population.
Hmm.
Rather than taking athletic based movement screens, those that were meant for high level athletes or even high school or college level athletes, and trying to fit them into the general population, which is a lot of times what we've been doing. A lot of the information is coming from these elite professionals, and we're trying to trickle it down into the general population that aren't career athletes. They
Yep.
have other careers and they're recreational at best. So, for instance, let's just take your pelvis. You know, your thigh bones come up and they meet that bony structure of your
Mhm.
pelvis, and the pelvis is kind of like a waiter's tray with a stack of cups on top we call a spine. And that stack of
So
cups has a
that's a
bowling
really
ball,
great picture. That's awesome.
right?
That's great.
Okay. So imagine, like, if you're trying to go across just walk across a room and you've got that waiter's tray with the stack of cups and a bowling ball on the top cup. Mind you, the cups get smaller as they go to the top, right? That's what we're talking about, trying to move through three-dimensional space within our bodies. Well, when you walk, that waiter's tray should tilt a little bit forward in one moment, and then it should tilt back without much resistance, without any restriction necessarily. It should tilt like it's a wave-like action, just flowing back and forth. And then also, it should be able to kind of glide effortlessly to balance over one leg, so we can lift the other one off the floor. And then it should glide effortlessly, evenly over to the other side. And there's a moment where it might tilt sideways on one direction and tilt the other. And of course, with our legs swinging forward and backwards, that waiter's tray has to rotate left and right. There you go. There's some basic movements that we can ask or screen our clients with. What is it like to tilt your pelvis forward and back? Is there a difference in one direction compared to the other? Is there pain? Do you feel restricted? Like, give me some adjectives. Is it crunchy, creamy, silky, smooth, foreign, natural? Just give me a sense of what that's like. And if there's something that doesn't feel like it's fluid and moving, well, right there, that should give me an idea that maybe I want to work on how they move through their pelvis in that way. That will give me some nice flexion extension all the way up and down my chain if I get the area where first muscle contraction has to occur on any movement we do, whether it's getting up out of a chair or sitting down in a chair or taking a step. The muscles near the pelvis are what have to fire first in order for you to lift your foot off the ground, or you have to lean forward to get out of the chair. Something has to occur at the origin of movement. So why not start at the beginning and work your way out? So now I could do the same thing with, how does your pelvis glide over one leg than the other? Is it different? Does it feel like you have more range in one direction compared to the other? And, where is that pelvis sitting in space is the other component. If we can get an understanding of their resting posture and where that pelvis is, then when they do their movements, we can get a better understanding of really what's happening. Like if a pelvis is, say, shifted a little bit more over the left foot because they had an injury on the right leg, and subtly over
Mhm.
time, they've just grown accustomed to being over in that resting posture. And I ask them, what is it like to glide left and right? And it's really easy to glide over to the right, but really hard to glide left. I'll be like, well, that's because you're already over to the left. So you don't have any room to give. Oh, maybe I'll just see what it's like for you to experience movement to your right, seeing that you practice going to your left all the time. Which brings up something else that we could talk about is,
Hmm.
there is something with programs that we must be balanced. But if I'm so much over one side or rotated in one direction more than the other, it may not be conducive to actually doing the same exact thing on each side and expecting a balance effect. Some of the programs that I have, people are doing a little bit more work or a different thing on their right leg and compared to their left. They may actually need a different movement entirely. So we've got to break away from these assumed principles that don't necessarily hold water as much as we thought they did.
Cup pun intended with the spine. I can't get that
There you
image out of
go.
I can't get it out of my head. No, I love that. And it's really funny that you're diving into, an assessment concept at NSCA. I dabble in it a little bit with the talk that I'll give in terms of helping coaches understand that they need to be beyond, this entry level thought of fitness. We're talking bodybuilding, anything of the sort, that the great assessments and things that are out there we talk about, right? FMS or any of the other ones are designed for elite athletes, right? You're going to fail no matter what, right? You are not by nature an elite athlete, or most people are not at that standard. So it's curious. We'll call myself a new trainer, any easy pointers in terms of creating an assessment for ourselves, right? Any jumping off points? Now, you specifically highlighted the pelvic floor, the pelvic bowl, so to speak, but you got actually pretty complex with how you're thinking about it, technically moving in almost 4 degrees of freedom in a sense, right? How you're
Yeah, there's
rotating it
four
and moving it.
movements.
Right. But if I'm going to create an assessment, if I'm a newer trainer, someone listening to this who's a little bit less experienced than the two of us, where's the jumping off point for creating my own assessment and really taking that path with my clients?
If we just think about human existence,
Huh?
boil it down to its simplest form, there's posture. How do we fight gravity? How does somebody hold their body against posture? I mean, against gravity. And so we know that there is one ideal way. All the anatomy books show this symmetry where the shoulders and the hips and the legs should be, and
Right.
so on. What if we just compared next to that unattainable ideal, just to know where are we gravitating from? Would that give you insight as to where you want the body to go? Let's just
Yeah.
say that you do a quick posture assessment, right? And you notice, for those that are
Yeah.
just listening, not watching the video, that you just elevated one shoulder and the other shoulders dropped down. Okay, as a new trainer, knowing that we're trying to restore a little bit more balance and symmetry and bring the body into a more balanced place, what would you do? Just simply put, if your right shoulder is elevated and your left shoulder is down, what do you want to do with your right shoulder?
Right. Depress it.
Yeah. And what do you want to do with your left shoulder?
Technically keep it natural or
Natural or elevated. So we've got two options here. I can either try and encourage it in the direction it's not going, so dropping the right shoulder, raising the left, and see if that gives me a little bit more balance in the body. That's one way of doing it. And the other option is basically I just drive them deeper into where they're already trending. And then muscles will have to lengthen a little bit further under load. And what happens after a muscle is lengthened and loaded, the automatic thing is it starts to contract and shorten. So I've got two basic options. I've got what we might call direct and indirect and osteopathy, or we might call it functional and structural in other worlds. But I can either drive them in the opposite direction they're going, or I drive them deeper into where they go. One of them is probably going to give me the desired outcome. I mean, we don't have to get too complex. Does your pelvis like going backwards? Does it like going forward? Oh, when it goes forward, my back gets jammed. That tells me there's something that's happening that shouldn't be happening. And so now we can explore, what is it like to tilt it backwards? And can I do an exercise where I'm tucking my tailbone
Mhm.
and posteriorly tilting? As a trainer, you've got plenty of exercises in your belt that will encourage that movement. And I'm not going to tell you which one to do. I'm just going to say, hey, Josh, just see if you can get that pelvis to tilt back. Okay, then reassess. Is there a cleaner motion? Do they have better access? And if it's not, then okay, we go in the opposite direction. What is it like to drive them deeper into an anterior tilt? And can we do it without eliciting pain? And then reassess. Chances are it's going to be one or the other. I mean, I did not go to school for exercise physiology, kinesiology, biomechanics, or anything else. I learned it on the way, but I'm not a brainiac. I am not a rocket scientist. I am just a dumb muscle guy. So I need simple answers. If it's not left, then go right. If it doesn't work going up, then go down. There's just the duality of nature and the universe is great. It's very binary. If it's not a one, it's a zero.
I think you hit on a lot of good points there for those listening. And most importantly, find balance in your body, right? And we can use different joints, different positionings, different structures, but find balance. And then when you go to fight against it, when you go to teach against it, right, do the opposite, basically, right? So if you're dipped on one side of the shoulder, drop the other one. And he's trying to simplify it. So it's fun to listen. It's fun to listen because you say, you're a simple guy with simple answers, yet you're actually, it's a really complex school of thought, it's fun for me to listen to, but I'm trying to digest it. I love that. And then I know you're creating Return to Center and this is a course, correct?
Yeah. So I don't recommend anybody writing a book and releasing it during a global pandemic because your sales are going to not be that great. But what the heck? I figured, I love a challenge. You might as well just throw it on top, right?
Just pile it
So
on.
So basically, I wrote a few books in the early 2000s. I don't recommend buying them, but they were just conditioning books for adventure sports because that's what I like to do: surfing and snowboarding and whitewater rafting, canoeing, and all that. So I just took the experience from the gym and blended it with those activities. And enough time had gone by that around 2019, I thought, well, maybe I'll do a second edition of the surf book that I wrote. And as I wrote it, my wife started reading it. She's like, this is a completely different beast altogether. You're writing a completely different book, which is essentially the culmination of all my learning up until that time and looking at how I really design programs. So return to center, strength training to realign the body, recover from pain, and achieve optimal performance. That's the subtitle of it. And essentially it's guiding people through this understanding that if we can use the existing tools we have in a gym and health club, select them in a way that will benefit us greater than how we're using them right now. So looking at them and looking at what our body really needs to bring the body into better alignment, so the likelihood of non-contact injuries is reduced because compensations are reduced and strength levels increase, but we don't have to load us with heavy weights. We can actually strengthen it by our nervous system feeling better about the force it can produce within
Right.
the existing muscle we already have. We don't always have to increase our strength by increasing muscle size. We can increase our strength by allowing our brain to access more force and not feel threatened by doing so. So it's basically taking this information from the book and creating online coursework as well as in-person courses and launching kind of a series that will help people understand just what it is that I'm trying to share.
It's incredible. Now, is it mainly more for coaches, someone like myself, or is this more of a Gen Pop thing? Is this something that anyone can take?
Well, I tried to write it in a way that it will cover across the spectrum. What I realize is that people can follow along, but at the end, when you're doing your assessments, how you select movements is not as well explained as I probably could have done within the pages of the book. And I did about 150 videos that I embedded into the pages in the form of QR codes, and they're on YouTube. So as you're flipping through the pages, you get to some concept, you can just put your camera on it and the video will appear on your phone or device. So it was kind of more interactive that way. But even with that, Josh, I feel like, if I could go back, that's the other thing about you write a book, you publish it, and then as soon as it goes to print, you're going, ooh, I should have added this, or I should have taken out that. Dang it, I
Missed
can't
it.
change it. So there you go. There's my little caveat there. So all the more reason I teach it to the clients that come in here in regards to general population, and I will do courses to the general pop. But more often than not, I'm trying to educate and involve the professional realm. So strength coaches, also physical therapists, athletic trainers, and chiropractors. I've been approved to teach continuing education to all of those factors, which
Wow.
or all of those professions, and they make up, for sports teams at least, they make up the majority of the medical and training staff. So my hope is that as time goes by with each passing month and the years to come, that during the off season of sports, whether it be at high school, college, or professional Olympic levels, that I can go and help educate their training staff and in service days. And that's been going on, and more people are finding out about it. So it's kind of nice that the phone rings when they find out, wow, this actually works. That's weird. Because
For
it is weird. It's like I've been on the fringe for many years talking about this stuff, but now you got some people that are actually showing the results of it, and in real time they're going, whoa, okay, what did you guys just do? Well, go talk to this weird surfer in Santa Cruz.
Go talk to the
That's
surfer guy.
basically what it comes down to. Yeah.
Well, I can't. That's an incredible achievement for you to be able to do that on such a wide net. So congratulations on getting accredited for that or approved for that. But in coaching, so obviously you have this, I'll say methodology or thought processes in getting to deal with these higher level sports teams, and they're usually the forefront of sports medicine for what we do for athletic performance for training. Where do you see kind of the future of fitness going? Where's the next thing? How are we evolving as an industry, especially getting to work with some of these high level performers, both as the actual athletes or the practitioners? What's next? Where are we going?
Oh man, I honestly wish I had the answer to that question because I would be doing exactly whatever it was and sitting back pretty in some mansion in Hawaii waiting for the swell to appear. But I feel like we're sitting on a precipice that we could fall in either direction,
Also,
into the rocks or onto a mattress. It's just like one or the other. I feel like we're still in a barbaric phase in infancy when it comes to strength conditioning. It's not all that old. Really, it's, if we think about it, I mean, the NSCA, that was founded in 1978, 79, out of the need for Nebraska football players, the Huskers, to do something in the gym. And they had one guy that kind of started training them. And the way his programs were there, well, they won a national title that year. And so that makes heads turn, and so people started to mimic that, and a lot of the stuff that we've been doing for the last 40 years was really supported by that type of programming. But when you look at it, you're like, oh, dude, I don't know if there'd be too many people that would be game for doing those programs today.
right.
So. And then think about the 90s or the early 2000s when the term functional training actually started to be born. You had people standing on stability balls and having Olympic bars on their shoulders trying to do some really stupid human tricks.
Yep.
There's like a Golf Digest cover of the magazine with a golfer actually swinging a club while standing on a ball. You're just like, oh my gosh, we have a tendency to swing the pendulum way too far. And we don't do anything in moderation, especially in this culture. It's all or nothing. In fact, that's what is crazy about today, where I'm just going, we have so much high intensity training facilities for a population that is getting less and less active, structurally weaker, more sedentary, and less functional, I guess, if you want to
Mhm.
call it that. You might as well take that Formula One racing engine and throw it into a Toyota Corolla and go around the Le Mans. It's like, yeah, it's going to go fast, but that chassis is not going to handle it, and that thing's going to fall apart. It's no wonder there's so many physical therapy places that set up shop right next to gyms. It's like that's
Mhm.
gold mine.
Yep.
So I don't know, man. I really wish we can break away from the harder, bigger, like stronger mentality of more is better and settle into somewhere in the land of moderation.
I
Human
think
nature kind of works against that.
I think you hit the nail on the head in talking. The pendulum swings both ways, but finding moderation or the pendulum coming back to center, you made a point before to talk about what you actually have access to, right? So, what you're able to recruit in terms of tissue usage. And I think your methodology in terms of this, relooking at patterning and how the body's moving, can it move more efficiently, like aerodynamics of a car versus just the raw engine size, right? I think you're probably the forefront of it. I was privileged enough to learn from someone like you. We talk about Lauren, we talk about Mike Boyle. That's the system and strategy that I believe it has been so underutilized by so many people because, like you said, Nebraska or the big football teams, the NFL is notorious for this, of these old school strength programs where all of a sudden now someone like yourself starts to put a little bit of thought behind it and showcase success. And it's like, wait a minute, there is absolutely a safer, more effective way long term to train these people and keep them, out of harm's way on the field and in life. So I think personally, I think you're the forefront of it, trying to learn from you. That's
Well,
awesome.
I'd stop there because my head will inflate and I can't get through the doorway if you keep
That's what
going
I'm here
like that.
for.
But yeah, yeah. But I tell you, well, the comforting thing is there's other people thinking like this, and they are
Mhm.
in positions of influence, and they are opening their doors to consideration and say, okay, let's see if this holds water and let's see the effects, because I really don't know how to staunch the bleeding when it comes to non-contact injuries on the field or the court or whatnot. NFL, that's going to take a while. I mean, there's some really forward-thinking individuals, some brilliant minds there, and yet the industry is still in this kind of assembly line of disposable players, where there's so many players on the practice squad and on the team itself,
Hmm.
64 in the roster, that they'll just spit them out
Hmm.
if you're not at the top level. But basketball, baseball, and hockey, fewer team members there, and they're a little bit more open to considering this. And not to pound on football, I love the sport and everything, but it is the good old boy sport. When basketball, there's a little bit more finesse, a little bit more science these days, backing it up, and there's a lot more support staff per player compared to NFL teams.
Does not have it. Yeah.
You've got one strength coach that heads up the entire squad for defense, offense, special teams, and whatnot. I mean, that's just crazy to me. People like Andrea Hootie, the strength coach for the UConn women's basketball team, she's a forward thinker. She opened up her doors. She was wondering what was out there, and we started having conversations, and we did some work together in the preseason and through the season, just kind of troubleshooting the things that her players had been plagued by for the seasons leading up to last season. And we did some work with working on stability from the ground up, working with the foot, how the earth contacts the body, or, you could say how the body contacts the earth, but really how the earth hits the body and what the body has to do when that happens. Like, designing programs based on that rather than laying somebody on the ground and lifting their leg up or having them balance on something.
Hmm.
It's just, for me, it makes more sense. And for her, it started making more sense. And, I don't know if it was just luck or coincidence or what we did, but they're national champs this year and they're looking to do the same thing next year. So we'll see how that goes.
Now you're just going to have to find some more flaws in the system to start to fix.
There you go.
Right.
There's plenty of them. Yeah, just
So,
one at a
so,
time, though.
so before we start to wind down a little bit, this is the Live Vibrant podcast. Work aside, obviously, what do you do each and every day besides work to live a little bit more vibrant? Tell me a little bit about you.
I start my day off by doing 4 mental puzzles. I love Wordle, this game
Oh,
called Square Word. I do connections, and I do the New York Times mini crossword. I try and do it in under a minute.
okay.
It's just like one of my, like, okay, let's start your brain. Right, first thing off, I hit the tea kettle, and while that's boiling, I see if I can't complete all 4 puzzles by the time the kettle's done. So I'm under pressure, but I like it. And then from there, I open up my Google Calendar and check that off my list because I really am good with to-do lists and completing tasks. So I'm a very task oriented. Next on the list is write 3 things I'm grateful for. And I've been doing that for not quite a year. Middle of October, I decided that that would be a good exercise for me. And also, I cannot repeat anything that I list. So every day has to be something different than any day before. And here we are in July, and it's been going since middle of October, and I have yet to repeat anything. So it just puts my perspective in an attitude of gratitude, and that's how I start my day. And then I give myself some mindless entertainment in the form of just perusing YouTube, sometimes for education, sometimes for just stupid little movie
Yep.
clips or whatever.
Oops.
But I give myself about 15 to 20 minutes of just being mindless, and because then I just get to it, jump in the shower, get to work, and somewhere in the day, I in the morning I do the surf report for 2 radio stations locally. I've been doing that for about 20 plus years, and
Amazing.
just it keeps my thumb on what's going on with weather patterns and surf conditions. And then if there are good conditions, then I paddle out and I get out there and I connect with something that has more power than me, that I have no control of, and it makes me appreciate the power of things around me, and connecting with nature is just amazing. And then and then I help people. I try and just be of service to those around me, whether it's trainers like yourself calling with questions, clients that I'm working with, teams that I'm working with, or just providing some content. And I've got my own podcast where I interview professionals in the world of sports. They're the pros behind pro sports. So performance directors, athlete athletic trainers and whatnot in the NFL, NBA, and so on.
So this is something for everyone to take a note from, and the number of things that he just rattled off that would be good habits for people to take in. And I like the attitude of gratitude. I can tell you, I'm going to adopt that. I have my affirmations and things around the house, but I like that saying, the attitude of gratitude. So you've given me that today. I can't thank
Right
you
on.
enough. So tell me,
Dude, pleasure,
give me the spiel, the plug. Where do we find you? Where do we pick up your book? Where do we hear the podcast? Give me the lowdown here.
Honestly, with a name like Rocky, it's Google searches are a little bit easier than say a name like Josh. No offense, but if you do like I don't know Rocky personal training, Rocky Santa Cruz, or anything like that, you can find it. But my last name is Snyder, Snyder. So my website's rockysnyder.com. You can go onto YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel by the same name. I put out a whole bunch of hopefully informative short bits here and there. Plus, you can get my podcast, Zealous Podcast, VELOS. So the Zealous Podcast, you can do a search for that. I'd love for you to follow me on Instagram. I put a lot of content out there, which is just, again, my name with a little underscore between the first and last name. LinkedIn, I love connecting with professionals on LinkedIn. And that's essentially it. I don't do anything with X, formerly Twitter. I don't TikTok. My kids
Yep.
still have to show me really the benefit of that. But Instagram, Facebook. Yeah, I'm of the Facebook generation, I guess you'd say, and just online.
That's
And if you're
amazing.
in Santa Cruz and you surf, then definitely text me, and I'll take you out to one of those secret little spots.
Love it. And by the way, so for those more industry professionals, where's the next place we can hear you talk?
I've got a few things scheduled. I will be in Kansas City at the NSCA National Conference, putting on a 2-hour workshop pre-conference on Wednesday afternoon, which is open and closed chain foot mobilization, how to tap into the rest of your body from the ground up. And then also at that conference, I'll be doing movement screening for the general population, how to create it from a trainer's perspective. In August, I will be on the East Coast in Providence, Rhode Island for the Perform Better 3-day functional summit happening there. That'll be in the middle of August, the 14th and the 16th. And then at the end of September, I head back to the Functional Institute that Perform Better has created in West Warwick, Rhode Island, all about basically calibrating movement from the ground up, which is a 1-day workshop. We dive in deep on how to use foot wedges and access movement and really just getting the body to clean up and take away a lot of compensations and understand movement, hopefully at a deeper but an easier to understand kind of manner.
Lots of great places to catch Rocky. Clearly the man, clearly an expert. And man, I look up to you. I hope one day to be as talented as you are. And I'm so fortunate and thankful that you were able to hop on today. I mean that.
Yeah, give it a month. Give it a month. I think that's where you'll be.
I'll catch up in a month.
Gosh, this has been great, man. I really appreciate it.
I can't wait to talk again. And you have a fantastic day, Mr. Rocky.
Right on. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.